really, our name is so long.
That is it.
Something, you know,
You can just have some sort of iPhone app name, like
add some vowels.
Ruby or something like that. What the hell is that? Oh, it's a new building.
I'm passing the word, but I stumble on the name.
It's true. It's a bit of a hang up in shortening it might be better. And you know, if you want to get recognized, they suggest trying not to shorten it into an acronym. So I mean, maybe it's just the Building Collaborative, or there is a way even to shorten your this long name into something that's less of a mouthful.
Which is, you know, high performance.
High performance,
You know,
yeah.
That attracted me to the like
Yeah.
environmental design part of that.
High Performance Collaborative.
Just like
People will think there's like a little exercise bike.
Oh, there will be, there will be.
On the 6th floor of the
I'm
first
sorry,
interstate.
let's just carry on.
Just real quick on the challenge side. First of all, I wasn't at the first meeting, so if there were other architects who were alienated, it wasn't because of me.
Your names are on the
But,
list with an X next to one.
When I think back of different organizations that made a significant shift in public perception, I always reflect on what the Clark Fork Coalition was able to do, and it was a combination of getting the dam removed, or at least getting the approval for the dam to be removed, and also launching the market. And even though they do many other things, including educational programs and things like that, two really visible things in the community made a big difference. And so it may be that we need to hitch our wagons to whatever the first school projects are, or whatever it is, and kind of take some credit for moving the needle in that direction, and then that raises the visibility and credibility of the group.
On that front, I recently sent an email, well, it was yesterday, to a reporter at the Brazilian about this high-performance building feature that we've spoken about. So whether he responds remains to be seen, but the cat is out of the bag as far as, well, now they know that we exist. So we have to change the name. So we did. Also, I'm looking at my notes from last time, and I realized that we were going to essentially write a letter to the editor at the Brazilian, or an op-ed piece welcoming this inward-looking approach plan, given that context of the school bond, all the new developments on tap, affordable housing, and its lack this year, and say we as this group of whatever we're going to be called welcome the plan, and are here to help, and here's some things to consider as we move forward as a community. So file that away. If there's someone who wants to work on this letter with me over the next couple of days, maybe we can get it out early in the year, 2016. Yeah, I'm happy to do it, but I don't want to be doing stuff just for the sake
I think it's a good idea.
group, but just going off on my own and doing that, like some good things.
We've talked about it, and I think, you know, it's get the mission, make it big and overarching, and then it's just patient. It takes a while to get, you've got some traction. And you want things to go quicker than in your shoes. It just takes forever.
Can I mention another challenge?
What's that?
Can I mention another challenge?
Of course.
So Helen and I were at the planning board meeting last night, and the public hearing was on the county's growth policy. So the city just approved one, which you just mentioned actually a week or so ago. The council approved it, and I think it incorporates a lot of the things that this group would be really supportive of. And the city has taken a leadership role through Chase and others in making the kind of work that we're talking about here a priority for the city itself and for the community. I can't say that's the same for the county. And if you are interested in working outside the bounds of the city limits, there are some real policy challenges in terms of trying to bring this kind of information and just the acceptance of climate change to a broader audience within the county. And the growth policy is an excellent place to incorporate that information. It provides a vision for the community in terms of what we see as where we are currently, what the challenges are, and how to create a trajectory to get to a place that we want to get to. And that document really needs help. is my personal opinion about that. And so if anyone's interested in engaging on a broader policy level beyond the city, that's a place to put some energy.
Well, just so you know, one of the reasons we chose the high performance name instead of green is to engage a broader swath of stakeholders, I guess you could call them. I can probably safely speak for most people in this room that we think that climate change is a pretty incredible threat and challenge we need to work on, and we're doing that through the built environment and buildings in particular here, but we also recognize that we don't need to alienate people to do that. So there's probably some kind of way we can mesh.
Yeah, I think it's just something to keep in mind about just not being, you know, if the interest is to not just be city focused, to provide that input to a broader audience in the county.
Just to follow up on that, planning board rejected the growth policy last night. It was that bad. So, you know, we asked them to come back with another round of data and edits and variety of goals and objectives and actions. And, you know, maybe after the article goes out about this group's perspective and input on the city growth policy might be appropriate for us, you know, at some point to provide input on the county growth policy, because as John mentioned, that one really needs help.
The policy was about 300 pages long.
The city one was.
Yeah.
The county is much shorter.
Oh.
A lot of attention got put towards the city. They had working groups and they had a real active, and so I think people focused, at least maybe speaking for myself, we focused on the city and neglected the county.
Yeah, because I was following the city through the
Yep.
implementation.
It's a slightly different audience.
Yeah.
I mean,
But we're part of the county.
Yeah, we are part of the county, and an important part of the county. So, anyhow, that's a challenge.
What's the timeline? This is really
The lighting okay? Did that get dark?
turn it down a tiny bit.
Okay, well, gosh, everybody, thanks so much for the opportunity to talk today. I just also wanted to warn you, I am recording this as part of my lecture series, so if, Sherry, since you're missing it, you can see it on YouTube. It's okay, we'll get it there. So I just got my laptop running, and I also have the overhead running as well. The two slides that showed before were quotes that I give at other talks. As I hope I mentioned in some of my news, I think I'm working, you know, at a fairly high level, you know, talking to Department of Energy officials. That was my first job out of college, so it was very nostalgic being back there last month, sort of sitting on the top floor instead of the basement for a change. But also, what I'm going to talk about today is very local and you know, very intimate to my own life. So what I'm going to show are the projects and a little bit of the economics. That's really what I'm asking this group's help on in a net positive home. I think you've heard of net zero homes. Now this notion of a net positive home is now hitting the popular press. And the climate change studies, or the climate change talks and reports from NPR a couple of days ago, there was a NASA-sponsored home that was featured on that. So I'm hoping that we might build something of that nature in Missoula, and I'm willing to use my own residence as a test bed. So here we go. This is the house. This is just Google view. A really good friend of mine, Jeff Crouch, he's a local architect. One of the main reasons I moved to Missoula. Looked at this house. It's like, man, it's got a lot of potential. It's just kind of a square box sitting up there waiting for something to happen. I've done a few modifications that I'll show you today. My background, by the way, is engineering. I'm a mechanical engineer. My strength is in materials and structures, but I've been delving a lot into thermodynamics lately, and that's really what I'm going to try to cover mostly today. Okay, so here's part of our title, 5 Valleys, High Performance Building Collaborative Commission, whatever we are. I don't know what number the Rattlesnake Valley is, but I just numbered it 3 there if you start clockwise from the Clark Fork and Blackfoot and all that. But this is where we are. Somewhat ironically, you can the dump is also positioned. My house is the one with the balloon, not the giant scar here in the upper left corner. I will talk a little bit about the landfill in my talk as well, but it's really ideally positioned in a lot of ways. We bought the house because it's close to town. It's also really close to nature, so really enviable address. I've had a lot of people. In fact, I invited the person who wants to buy the house from me, like immediately to come. She's not here, but I was showing her some of the modifications that I'm planning to do for the house. So hopefully it won't go on the market. I would really love to own it, and I'd really love help from this group. Okay, so here are the goals that I've put forward for making 8 Columbine into a net positive house. So I'd like to be able to make more electricity than I consume with solar PV. I think that's already been accomplished here in town with 3 kilowatt arrays and such. I'd like to be able to make more heat than I consume in a carbon-free manner with solar, thermal, liquid, and air. We have built these systems. They're not that tough. Built them with my students. In fact, I'll show you some that we've already installed. I would like the house to be net positive for water. There's plenty of it sitting around. I can see water all over town right now, sitting in a nice, convenient, solid form that I think we could put to better use. I would also like the house to be net positive on soil. I've been collecting biomass for my neighborhood for 5 years now. I have tens of cubic meters of soil that I've created from leaves and grass clippings and other things that were otherwise would have been going to the landfill. I would really like to get off the methane grid. I would like to not have to burn any carbon molecule that's more than 50 years or so old. One of the problems that I take my students through on the first day of class is the fact that humanity is consuming ancient carbon at a rate 10 million times greater than it was put there. The problem that I have my students do is that we are, if you were a 100-year-old person and you had $1 in your bank every minute from the minute you were born, you lived for 50 million minutes. Carbon has been sequestered on this planet for the last 3 billion years. We're going through all of it in 300. So we're about 2.5 minutes through a carbon-fueled party that's going to end on our 100th birthday. That's the math, kind of the big math on carbon consumption. The challenge is going to be a net CO2, a net negative CO2. I'd like to be a CO2 sink if I can. And I'm going to show you the challenges of that. I'm really glad Craig's in the room today, as well as Bob and Peter. Thanks so much for coming. I think we've got great potential to do some of the larger scale carbon sequestration technologies that we're working on at the residential scale. And in fact, Craig Thomas has already demonstrated that at his house. I'd like to be net negative on the landfill. I've achieved that already in the past 5 years. Like I said, I've been able to collect things that were on their way to the landfill from my neighbors, take them to Goodwill, take them to Home Resource, sell them on Craigslist, what have you. So I see a lot of potential there. And then also have minimal transportation impact, and I'll show you what I mean by that. Okay, so here are a few things that I've done already. I have. Just hit this guy here.
Okay, so you want me to be advancing them at the same pace as you're doing it?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
No problem. There we go. So I've got a plenum or an airspace under my deck that I've insulated. The basic strategy here is to sort of bump out the footprint of the house rather than replace things, just sort of make it larger. So you've got additional information from additional air mass as well as solid mass. Built a tool shed in the backyard that I'm hoping to integrate with some geothermal. I've done some weather stripping on the old antiquated aluminum doors and windows around the house. I've buried the baseboard registers so the house looks better inside with the wood floors that I put in. I have 2 fireplaces, one upstairs, one downstairs, with a third flue that I'll show you, a heat exchange design that I would like to implement there. I've refurbished the deck rail. It was painted with latex, and you know what happens to that in the summer and winter in Montana. I built a little tiki hut for fun in the back patio. I'd like to use that space as a dump load for excess hot water to put a hot tub or spa in the backyard. I've begun building a stone wall with stones that I brought up all on my bicycle for a private rear patio. There's a membrane roof, and in the words of an SBC, or no, SBS, I guess there's too many SBs around too. Molly Bradford My roof is a PV installer's wet dream, so Herd's words, not mine. Also, we've got, it's on the internet already. It's okay. It's already published. But and we do have wonderful neighbors and live in a fantastic neighborhood. So that's one of the things we're truly blessed with. Okay, 4 occupants, 4-bed, 2-bath. There's a 2-zone boiler with baseboard heating installed about 1980. As we speak, the upper loop is broken. The pump has gone down. We're heating with firewood in the upper. On the top floor, the house has no AC, and I do not intend to go there. I'd like to do it all with seasonal thermal storage. This is typical annual gas bills, water bill, electrical bill. I would like to eliminate those. There's a gentleman who gave a talk after my keynote in Billings last month who took his Billings suburban home off-grid, wind turbine, no sewer, no electric. He's rewriting a standard for DC low voltage in his house, so it's happening. In fact, it's happening. If it can happen in Billings, I'm pretty sure it can happen in Missoula as well. It's got a 100 amp service. I don't intend to go off grid. I would like to be able to be net positive and show that by still staying on the grid with the electric. I've got a bicycle garage. As I mentioned, I've been 0 landfill and about 5 tons of compost and soil that I've been building over the past 5 years. Okay. So I apologize to the architects and the draftsmen in the room. I just sort of grabbed this image of the house from Google Earth and just put a PowerPoint together just as a concept rather than putting a lot of extra time and effort into it. So what I'm envisioning here is a glass enclosure. This is on the left is the south. We're looking towards the west. So we're looking at the east side of the house. I would like to expand the roof sky print, if you will, with integrated PV over this entryway, as well as this portion here in the top. You have to walk outside to get to the garage. I'd like to keep that airspace contiguous with the garage. This is a shot at the backyard. I mentioned the plenum before. This is sort of a Dutch door that I built. Everything's insulated inside. I would like to continue to expand the airspace. I salvaged glass windows from my neighbors when they took out identical windows and doors to the ones you're seeing here. So a door goes here, glass goes here, glass goes here, and the stone wall continues, and I'll show you the remainder of that shortly. I'd like to put on some solar thermal. So these are solar thermal air exchangers. The one on the left is one that we built for my office building several years ago with 2 of my students. We've also built solar liquid exchangers. So a combination of those 2 will give us air inside as well as hot water for cooking, showering, etc. We took that same solar heat exchanger that I just showed you on the side of my building. It worked so well. We were hitting 240 degrees with this thing. It melted the polystyrene insulation inside. We stripped all that out because as Tom said, we spent a lot of time over indoors, and no one wants to sit indoors breathing VOCs. We stripped it all out. We put fiberglass insulation in it and just installed it up in Browning. I'm midway through a $750,000 National Science Foundation grant and Browning. Blackfeet Community College is a big part of that, so we were able to install that on a house that a resident of the town of Blackfoot, which is just east of Browning, is currently building for his daughter and his granddaughter. And so we'll be actually up there in Browning this summer, finishing this project and building these folks a rocket stove. I'm not sure if you've heard that technology or not, but we've got, in fact, kind of ironic, but we just got NASA funding to build a rocket stove. Okay, so here's just a shot of what those solar heat exchangers would look like. What you're looking at now is the summer, and there's a pretty big shadow cast. I'm going to show you shortly, though, in the winter, you don't get nearly as much shadow as you do, particularly on what would be 2 fantastic solar heat exchangers. They're poised perfectly. They're facing south, but they also catch a heck of a lot of sun in the morning when you want that heat coming into the house in the winter. And again, these are technologies that we built for $500 with reclaimed soda cans. So this is what they might look like on the side of the house. Again, apologies for the PowerPoint, the cut and paste, but put this together in a hurry. Oh, and this is more a winter angle. So this was just, the photo was taken just a couple days ago, so you can see the great exposure on these guys. As I said, I'd like to get off the fossil fuels and just burn, or, any carbon that I burn would be something that was sustainably harvested. I'm partnered now with Patrick Brown here in town of International Biomass. He has a product where he takes 9 parts scrap wood, and we were talking about how do you fix the forest fires. Well, you go get it now while it's not on fire first, bring it in, and make biofuel with it. 9 parts wood, 1 part plastic. Where's the plastic coming from? Well, it's the big bin outside of Albertsons. In fact, we've taken the plastic bin from Albertsons before, pelletized it, plasticized it. That gets sold International Biomass, and now you have a very high density biofuel. And by the way, plastic is biofuel. It's just really old. It's just really old biomass. And it doesn't contain heavy metals either. It's just carbon and hydrogen. And Patrick is burning this currently in an EPA-approved plant in Wisconsin, and hopes to put several more mills in Helena. The reason he wants to do it in Helena is because there's private land he has access to. He's having a heck of a time getting access to federal lands for harvesting dead wood. Okay, so this is the downstairs. I mentioned there's 2 fireplaces right now. It's just kind of cold, ugly, not that great, but what I'd love to do is just put in some kind of pellet stove. Patrick Brown's company is actually coming up with a thing they call the Camino. It's kind of a cool looking thing that you can put your logos on. Couldn't quite get the Camino here because it's not the right shape, but this is basically what we'd like to do is get that hot thermal mass in the basement of the house. And just on the other side is the plenum that I mentioned, so you've got the insulated airspace just beyond it. Okay, CO2 negative, like I said, this is the big challenge. So how do you burn things without emitting carbon dioxide into the atmosphere? Here's a shot of the chimney. Again, nice pop little box on top. What's going to go inside that box? Well, what I'd like to do is integrate the 3 flues that are there. There's a flue from the upstairs chimney, a flue from the downstairs, and then a third one that was just capped and cemented over. I really don't know where it goes, but I'm looking to explore that. And what I'd like to do is incorporate a bioreactive filter that Craig Thomas and Mike Holacek have been implementing at his ranch down in Stevensville. What you see here is just a conventional boiler on the left. Here's your wood supply. There's the conventional stack that would just go to the atmosphere, particulates, CO2, what have you. What they've done, though, is diverted the flue gases through this filter reactor. This is a repurposed pressure vessel that Craig welded together, put biomass inside. I don't think I have all the details. We've been working, Craig's been working on it for 4 or 5 years now. I've been on the project for about a year, and this is the technology that we would like to expand and, believe it or not, bring Colstrip into EPA compliance. But Craig has already demonstrated this on a residential scale. His wife commented one time, if I get the story right, that, hey Craig, I really like it when the heat comes on, but why do I have to smell that smoke every time I'm toasty warm? So the flue gases that come out here are essentially particulate free. You've reclaimed a lot of the heat. A lot of the SOx are gone. CO is essentially gone. Carbon dioxide is diminished. And nitrogen oxide is a little trickier just based on the temperature, but there's ways to tune that so you end up with low NOx as well. So this is the worst slide of the whole talk, but basically what I'd like to do with the 3 flues is have some way of, instead of exhausting particulates and gases in the atmosphere, actually use the chimney in a reverse fashion. We do have a downdraft gasifier, the Biomax, 25 kilowatt Biomax that Brian Kearns and I have been working on. It's now sitting down in the Bitterroot, but what I'd like to do is actually bring in fresh air down the flue of the chimney, burn biomass in there, send it up the other flue, distribute the heat through the house, and then have some type of distributed loop this is essentially the biofilter that I just showed you. So all of the flue gases are being filtered on site and just being driven by electric fans that would come from renewables, from the grid, because I've already put in more electricity than I'm getting back. So as long as I can show that, I can be net positive electricity and net negative CO2. Okay, so some of the things I've done with the plenum, I've already mentioned I've expanded the thermal air mass of the house. It's warm in the winter, it's cool in the summer. This is basically where a lot of the heat exchange would happen with the biofilter reactor. It's great for gardening space. I've got a couple chickens in there in the winter as well. Other seasonal storage, and as I mentioned, gas exchange and heat exchange can happen there as well under the deck of the house. I've broken nearly every rule, the covenants in Lincoln Hills. One of them is not using any used materials. One of our covenants in our neighborhood is you have to use new materials when you build something. All the materials that you see on this fence were reclaimed. These 2x4s right here were from a neighbor's fence project. I didn't cut any of them. I just pieced them together. Got some copper tubing from Home Resource and made a lattice. This is scrap from the Sentinel Wood Shop. This is my neighbor's coil from her burned out hot water heater. This is an old window counterweight. This chunk right here actually came from Jeff Crouch's backyard, believe it or not, a little chunk of wood. And this is from my neighbor's abandoned garden plots. All of this material was headed for the landfill, but I turned it into a gate in my backyard, or side yard. This is a shot, not quite as good, but this is sort of looking down the other direction. Another one. Sorry about the lighting here, but this is what the side yard looks like. The tiki hut, again, a terrible picture. I took this last night, but again, all reclaimed materials. In the back is a bar with old ceramics. I've got my wet saw there. I've got some reclaimed tin from Home Resource. Whenever I go to Home Resource, I always try to make it look better. I kind of take the stuff that nobody wants and turn it into
Are you sure you should have a bar and a wet saw in the same?
I still got them all, I don't know. Yeah, just wait till the hot tub goes in. I'd love to have a sauna, steam room in one of the downstairs bathrooms. Again, just a place to, just as a heat sink. You've got extra heat, pump it into your sauna. Pretty no-brainer. Oh, yeah, maybe it'll look this good. As I mentioned, I'd like to be net positive on the water. I would like to reduce the amount of water that I consume, and I think the toilet is a great place to start. And a lot of these new composting toilets are not that expensive. I just took a look out to see what some of the other projects are across the country, and this particular model in LA. So a lot of what I'm trying to do is not totally novel. I'm just sort of working with local materials, and I think as we're all trying to do here with the commission is find a sense of place, a sense of space, and use what we have in Missoula to our advantage. So you can see gray water in this particular one, recycled fly ash, so they're actually using what's coming out of coal-fired power plants as building materials, and as well as some other water catchment. I don't see a lot of seasonal thermal storage, but that's something else that I would like to do. Okay, so I already have a few rain barrels collected. I would like to expand that. I would like to put them higher so they get a little more pressure. We've got fantastic water pressure in the Rattlesnake. There's a giant tank on the top of the hill, and we're the bottom, so pressurizing water will be a challenge, but I'd like to just use that with the gravitational system and avoid pumps if possible. Here's some of the transportation solutions I've come up with. So I've been able, with my bicycle, to bring recent biomass that was just kind of down by the river, as well as some biomass for personal consumption. That's just my grocery run with me there as well. And as I mentioned before, all of the rocks from the wall in my backyard I brought up on this bicycle as well. And here's where they are. It's a little hard to see in the snow, but this is another little privacy wall on the south side of the patio. And again, just moving towards a little more privacy. As I said, I have great neighbors, but on the other hand, spending time outside, it's just nice to have a little space to yourself. This is the shed that I built. It's all recycled, reclaimed materials. You can see we've started working on some tiles here. This is just salvaged dishes that have broken over the years and things from our own home as well as from neighbors. This actually folds down and open. This one folds up sort of like a clamshell, and I've got my table saws in there so I can use the patio as a workspace when I need to. In terms of geothermal, I've got two doors, two sort of hatches inside the shed that open up so that you can dig down and potentially go under the patio to get to geothermal and seasonal thermal under the patio. Here's what seasonal thermal looks like. I don't really want to get into the aquifer. I'd much rather have something where I've got a hot tank and a cold tank. If we can pull it off at this practicum that we're going to have in Browning, I'd like to build an engineer's version of a theoretical device called Maxwell's Demon. I don't know if you haven't heard of that, you might take a look at it. James Clerk Maxwell in the 1850s thought of a device where you're basically sending hot air from a cold space into a hotter space, and whatever's cold in a hot space over to a cold space. Thermodynamically impossible, but we do it all the time with refrigerators. The only problem is you have to put work in to do it. Where does the work come from? Well, it comes from primary energy in nature. I would like to do this on a diurnal basis. So when it's hot outside, you bank the heat. When it's cold outside, you bank the cold. So wouldn't it be nice right now to be building a 5 or 10 ton block of ice under your house, so in the summer, when you want a nice cool afternoon, you flick on a heat exchanger and up comes the cool, and vice versa in the winter. And you've got that 100-degree day, pump that hot water in the ground, bring it up right now, and you're not burning things to stay warm. You're just doing heat exchange with what nature has provided you 6 months ago. And so people are doing it, building large thermal stores underground.
Have you showed that to your neighbors?
What's that? Well, this is all going to happen under the shed, you see. You saw the half doors. So
And then the tiki.
one wheel, yeah, exactly. One wheelbarrow at a time, yeah. So here's some of the finances, and this is sort of where I am the weakest in terms of putting I can do the energy calculations all day long. As you see, I built a lot of things really with free materials. It's just been free materials and my labor that's gone into it. I showed you a few prices on some technologies, and from here I'd like to, well, after the meeting I'm going to talk with Jared a little bit about, actually putting some dollar figures on some of the things I've talked about. But how do you take these current finances on 8 Columbine and turn them into a house in Missoula that could really serve as a model for other communities to follow? Okay. There's smart meters out there. It'd be great to go high-tech, to go high-performance, and be able to monitor all the energy systems. I did have the great opportunity also to sit down with Scott Horst when he was here as the CTO for the USGBC, and he's got a gadget very much like that that will give you sort of an instant play-by-play lead rating. I'd love to be able to knock that out of the park. Water shutoff, as you know, when houses are not occupied for a while. Fortunately, mine's not going to be. I found someone to live in my house in December and January when we're going to be in the Midwest. But a way to shut off the water remotely from anywhere so you don't have water damage. The gentleman I mentioned who's gone off grid in Billings is working now on a national standard for 12-volt DC in-house. My house has copper wiring. It was built during Vietnam when the copper was going to the Huey helicopters. Kind of ironic, we're sitting next to the world's largest copper mine, but that was a big liability when buying the house. And when I mentioned that to the potential buyer who's looking at it right now, they were somewhat scared of it as well. In fact, we did have a near fire in the kitchen a couple of years ago when the fix that the electrician did failed. So this needs to be addressed as well. I'd love to go to a 12-volt standard. As I mentioned, that's being written as we speak. Jared brought up flywheels during our meeting, so I thought I'd go there a little bit. I would love to have some kind of flywheel storage system in my house. Whether we go, Wright Brothers or, old school Westinghouse and attach machines to it or not, I'm not sure, but I thought it might be fun. Just something to, if you've got extra energy, somewhere to put it. We've built several wind turbines with my students over the year. This is just one of them. We built it on a trailer, so we didn't have to comply by any codes. We can just take it down when we need to, set it up when we need to. I would love to have just a deployable wind turbine. So it's not up during the wind, but during normal business hours in the rattlesnake. But you got a nice strong wind blowing at night. It's 2 a.m. Put the thing up and make electricity. And we've already done this. And here's one other thought. This would take, I think it would be a much longer range project, but I'd love to do some kind of integrated neighborhood sewer stack with the neighbors. So there's a lot of methane, a lot of CO2 comes off of the sewer. I'd love to be able to cap that, send all the biogas uphill, let the neighbors at the top benefit from that biogas that's heading uphill, and then take the hot water that's heading downhill and integrate that with distributed heating lower in the valley. Again, much longer range plans, but that's somewhere I think we should be heading. This isn't the best shot, but I would really like to put more insulation on the ceiling with blue board and new drywall, just to up the R value on the interior space. This is just a shot of the upstairs hearth with the plywood, or not plywood, the hardwood floors put in a couple years ago. And I would really like to follow ASME ANSI standards with this. We had a chance a couple years ago, unfortunately, kind of blew it with our Department of Labor grant to bring in an IREC standard to some of our classes. I'd be great to go to LEED Platinum if we could. I've been in contact a little bit with Amory Lovins at the Rocky Mountain Institute. It'd be great to have his organization's endorsement. I go to a lot of the Missoula Economic Partnership meetings. I think this would be a great feather in their cap as well. As I mentioned, I do have a few connections at the U.S. Department of Energy and several at NASA as well. So with that, I just want to show one other house that was mentioned recently. This is a net zero house up in Fairbanks, Alaska. So gosh, if they can do it there, I don't see why the heck we can't do it here in balmy Missoula. And then thanks to my wife, daughter, and son for all their support as well. Thank you. So no, it's kind of, half hour. Worked out.
Yeah, well done.
Thanks.
Questions, comments, anything?